People go missing in the Highlands a lot for many different reasons. Usually, they're found pretty soon. What was unusual was that he was not found.
Mountain rescue teams are searching for a man.
Tony Parsons was last seen late on the night
at the Bridge of Orkney Hotel.
He was taking part in a charity cycle ride. No trace was ever found of him or his bike.
I kept thinking he would just walk in. I didn't want to think about it being bad.
Where the hell are you? What has happened?
Loads of questions unanswered.
Somewhere on that stretch of road, Tony Parsons vanished off the face of the earth.
We spent 3 years coming to terms with the fact that my dad wasn't coming home, and then all of a sudden, one phone call flipped everything upside down.
You're fine, it's the Police Scotland, how can I help you?
I was to report a crime that happened 3 years ago in Bridge of Orkney.
There's a lot of detail in that initial call that starts to make you think this could actually be genuine.
I was a recent partner who disclosed it to me.
What's his name, please?
Alexander McKellar and his twin brother, Robert McKellar.
What's your name, please, ma'am?
Dr. Caroline Muirhead.
Her ex-partner had told her, the biggest secret I have is that I've killed somebody.
I can't believe I trust and reported.
All the information tends to tie up. They need to be arrested.
What can you tell me about your involvement in the disappearance of Anthony Parsons?
But what's our crime going to be at this point? We don't have a body, we don't have a cause of death.
We've only got the story that Caroline's told us.
Robert, I'm bringing this interview to a conclusion, but the investigation is far from over.
We need to act on this and we need to move it now.
We need to go and find this body.
Well, the 3 years not having my dad, not knowing where he is or what's happened, that literally eats you up from inside.
Having to wait 3 years of thinking, well, we're never going to find him again, we're never going to be able to grieve. Just got a phone call from a detective inspector asking to speak to me. We were told that credible intelligence had come in.
We got informed that the police were going to be excavating a piece of land.
Caroline had dropped a can of Red Bull, marking that spot where Tony Parsons was buried.
The Red Bull can was our starting point, but she had been given further specific information from Sandy that standing at that point, looking in a particular direction, looking at a landmark in that direction and a number of metres from that point, that is where he indicated is where the body was. It was 3 years since this body had been buried there, so to the untrained eye, all the ground looked the same. The plan moving forward was a case of who do we need to help us here? External specialists, because we need people who can provide their expertise with ground conditions, who can assist us with digging and filtering through earth.
And that's where Professor Lorna Dawson came in.
All cases that you work on are special and distinctive and unique. But there is something about this particular investigation that will stay with me forever. I got a phone call from the SIO. They asked me if I could go along to the site and see if there were any clues with the soil or the vegetation and whether there might be an area where someone might have been buried a few years ago. The location was remote. There was snow covering the mountains, and there were no sounds but the wild animals, the birds. And I think that's quite important, because if someone was trying to dispose of a body, you could be there and no one would see you digging a grave.
When you got there and you saw the Red Bull can, it was moorland, it was heath, heather.
There was a track, and at either side of the track there were clumps of vegetation. But there was an area of about 2 metres by 1 metre. It had obviously been disturbed fairly recently because the soil was mixed up so that the dark, deep peat was exposed. And it had left an impervious surface. The water sat on that peat. And because it was so cold, ice had formed. That was unusual because it was the only bit that had ice and moss only. All the other areas had shrubs.
It was her professional opinion. That's like a deposition site there where Tony has potentially been put. You could see that something had gone on there.
I thought it supported what the witness had told the police. That's the area that the excavation has to focus on.
You know you're looking for somebody's loved one and they're relying on you for answers. It's a very heavy burden to carry.
So there was quite a large team of experts required. Forensic archaeologists, they were able to very carefully skim off, using tiny brushes and tiny spatulas, layers centimetres deep. And each of those layers could be carefully looked through just to make sure that we didn't lose any potential evidence.
It was a very methodical, very structured event.
But as we went down, I'll always remember the moment where we saw this little piece of red fabric. That was the colour of the fabric that Mr. Parsons was wearing when he was last seen cycling home that day.
And I'm getting goosebumps down my back again here, talking about it. Immediately everything was stopped and a phone call went in back to senior management. We've got the sleeve of a red jacket here. Carefully,
the two anthropologists removed the peat from around Mr. Parsons. And it is an image that will stay with me. Mr. Parsons was about 50 centimetres down. It's quite a cold, constant temperature at that depth. The preservation of the cold, wet peat had kept Mr. Parsons so well that he still looked like the images of him on the day that he disappeared.
That was Tony. When I saw him face to face, that was Tony.
You want to know the answers, but realistically, you don't. And it's not a case of that you're thinking about yourself. You suddenly become, how am I going to look after everybody else? When you're having to stand there and watch your mum absolutely break down, it's tough. It really is tough.
They came out and they told me that they'd found Tony. Obviously, my words were, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" And they said yes. The injuries that Tony had were horrific.
My mum was an absolute wreck because at that moment, all her hopes of ever having that possibility of seeing my dad again were just gone. There was nothing left.
We had mountain rescue in with us to lift Tony's body. The weather was atrocious that day. It was very low cloud cover. We got everybody into position. Everything had to be done right, and there was suddenly a shout, and it was the diggerman. "Guys, stop, look." Now, all morning, you couldn't see the hills surrounding you. And at that point of time, the cloud had lifted and we must have been surrounded by about 40 red deer. We are standing there ready to lift Tony out of there, and these wild animals, they're just standing watching us. We all just took a breath, looked at each other, and then that was it. We lifted Tony up and out. It was quite a moment.
We're all made up of molecules, these elements that make us our body, but there is the soul. It could have gone unsolved. He could have still been in that cold, dark place alone. Once you've put a loved one to rest, they are at rest, and that the family have somewhere to go and grieve.
I didn't personally feel that bad about it because I'd expected it. I had been waiting 3.5 years for that news. So it wasn't as big a shock. Being told that he was found buried, that made me feel physically sick. How? Why?
Where Tony was recovered was an area where there was kill pits. It's where the farmer or the gamekeeper will dig a pit basically and dispose of fallen livestock, anything that had been shot by sporting tourists basically on the estate that wasn't required for meat was disposed of by the estate in this kill pit. Words can't describe what would go through somebody's head to put another human being into that position. They're horrible.
The family of a grandad whose remains were found in Argyll more than 3 years after he went missing say they've been left devastated by his death.
We didn't know the details. A lot of it was kept from us, obviously, because it was an ongoing investigation.
Recovery of the remains is a massive, massive moment in the investigation. But for us, it's literally just the start. The end goal for us is to find the evidence to convict Sandy and Robert for whatever's happened here.
There are two different perspectives on this story. You've got the inner one. The people at the centre of this criminal investigation know what happened. The police are figuring it out. And then outside that, you've got the rest of us. And as a reporter, our job is to try to get the inside story and bring it out. Why haven't these two men been charged? Why are they back out into their communities? What's going on?
The boys went to school here. They had a huge group of friends here. Everybody knew them. People knew their parents. No one could quite believe the calculated way in which this appeared to be unfolding at that time, that not only had this poor man been killed, but he had also been killed in a way where his body was hidden.
If you were to tell this story to anybody who doesn't work in our field of work, you would probably think, well, he's told his girlfriend that this is where the body is, she's told the police, and lo and behold, the police have dug in that location and found the body. But we can't just jump to the conclusion that because he told Caroline that it was him and his brother who were responsible for this, then that must be true. Other people could be involved here.
At that point, it becomes a whole new dynamic of investigation. Don't bury yourself in a peat bog, so we know we're dealing with criminality. It's just exactly what crimes do we have, what we're looking to prove, what we're looking to show.
There wasn't any DNA found on any of the clothing or on the body itself to link it back to the people responsible. We've got a story, but we don't have a case. We've got to find the evidence that links them to this crime.
The car Sandy had been driving that night had been seized, but then we were able to do quite a lot of inquiry round about it. and we were able to actually, believe it or not, track back, and we were able to show that that car did have damage on the night that Anthony Parsons went missing.
Other people who worked in the Rock estate were able to see the significant damage to the car before it was taken away to be repaired.
Sandy and Robert had given the explanation that they struck a deer that night.
And that was really significant because we were able to establish that every time that car had been damaged previously, through the insurance, it had went to a specific garage to be repaired. On this occasion, the vehicle didn't go to that place. There was no report to the insurance.
That was really, really interesting, because if you had just struck a deer, why would you not claim your insurance?
Not only that, the place the vehicle had been taken to for repair was miles away.
Actually, the garage owner still had images. That car did have near side damage to it, which would be consistent of where they would have struck a cyclist.
It just adds another wee piece to the puzzle and another wee piece of evidence required to convict these individuals.
When my dad was found, we found out at that point that there was potentially a road accident and that my dad had been struck. One of the hardest things going through all of this was the fact that we didn't know the details because of our profession, my brother and I, being in the police. We also knew, don't ask questions.
When the inquiry seized their mobile phones, we could see the conversations that were going on between the brothers and other people. We then found a video. You could see the dashboard, the cockpit of a 4x4 truck, and it was on that stretch of road heading between the Bridge of Orchy to Tyndrum. And you saw a hand lifting up a can of Tennent's, shouting cheers and laughing. I remember myself and my colleague that were looking at the phones, were like, couldn't believe what we were seeing in front of us. This is a joke to them. Quite sickening, to be honest with you.
There was also text messages and social media comments that tended to suggest other people knew more about the circumstances than they were telling us.
One person said, "I think about this all the time. I'm relatively local and we've known who did it for ages. They were drunk driving, hit Tony and buried his body on their property. Someone tipped off the police, hence them searching and finding the body." So it suggests that there was a lot of local knowledge.
Whilst all of this was ongoing, the relationship between Caroline and Sandy continued.
I think Caroline thought that she had to try and get more evidence for us. As part of that, she would re-engage with Sandy. She was so involved with wanting to help. Obviously, first and foremost, we were just really concerned about her and her safety. But she supplied us with her phone and supplied us with recordings which were entered as part of the evidence.
She talks at one point, Robert definitely told her that when they got out of the car, there was a moan coming from the body and he was obviously still alive. That then tied in with the information we received from the expert pathologists.
It was quite upsetting pathology results, because there probably could have been a period of up to half an hour for which he would have been alive after the point of impact. The last thing you want to think is that that was somebody's last half hour. He would have known he was dying, and he would have known he was in the middle of nowhere, and he would have known there wasn't help coming, and that's really sad.
At the point in time when they have realised that he is at the side of the road and is still alive, a reasonable person would be making a decision to get somebody help.
See if he'd have just phoned 999 and held his hand and told him it was going to be okay in that last half hour, well, that's what most people would do.
Tony may have died anyway, but they had decided he was definitely going to die, and this was crucial in determining what charges would be relevant.
The first question for the prosecution service is whether a crime has been committed. Now, when human remains are found in a remote area, buried in a peat bog, that obviously gives rise to the likelihood that a criminal act has been committed. The next challenge was to decide what the nature of that crime was. Murder in Scotland can be committed in one of two ways. One, with a wicked intention to kill. The person that shoots someone else dead without any justification would be guilty of murder, and there's no difficulty with that. Equally, if the attacker demonstrates such wicked recklessness as to demonstrate that he does not care whether the victim lives or dies, then that can amount to murder too.
Robert and Sandy did not set out to kill Tony Parsons, but when they've struck him with a vehicle, if the evidence suggests he was still alive at that point, they can look at the state of Tony at that point in time and maybe reach the conclusion in their mind it's unlikely he'll survive. But if you're not medically qualified, how can you make that decision?
This was not straightforward. If Mr. Parsons was killed instantly, then the charge would probably have simply been causing death by dangerous driving, because there's no suggestion that the accused set out to kill Mr. Parsons. The difference with this case was that, knowing he was alive after the collision, they decided not to recruit help for him.
They have formed a plan in their mind to put him into the ground and conceal this fact forever. It's a sliding doors moment, and that's where the murderous intent comes in.
It seemed to me that an argument could be made out for murder.
You're not bound to answer, but if you do, your answers will be recorded and may be noted and may be used in evidence. Do you understand?
I do, yes.
The time is 15:08 hours on Tuesday, 1st of December 2021. At this time, we're within interview room number 4 at London Road Police Office. Yep. Can you confirm your name?
It's Alexander Gardner McKellar.
Your age?
It's 29.
Can I ask you your name, please?
Robert McKellar.
And your age, please, Robert?
This is 11 months down the line from the first arrest. On this occasion, the two twins were arrested that morning for murder.
When we first spoke to them, we had a lot more limited information, but much further down the line, we obviously had a full case built against them, so it was to bring them in and put all the evidence that we had to them to see if they would provide us with what had happened in their own words, or if they would tell us how they could live so long without telling anyone where Tony was.
So we're now going to be asked questions about your involvement in the murder of Anthony Parsons and attempting to defeat the course of justice. You're not bound to answer, but if you do, your answers will be recorded and may be noted and may be used in evidence. Do you understand?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
They probably both spent those 11 months wondering when we're coming back, and I think there maybe was a little bit of thinking they'll maybe never charge us with us or they'll never prove it happened. I think by the time they come to these interviews 11 months later, they're probably a lot more worried about what's going to be presented to them, and Sandy certainly doesn't look as polished. He looks like a man that's had a really tough 11 months. Doesn't have the same confidence. He's got the crossed arms, hands right in close to his a torso on his chest, and you can tell he's really, really uncomfortable here, which is different from how he was before.
You know what that is? Just look at that picture and think what you did to him, his family.
I see the photo.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the man? The man that's got a family, that's got a wife, that's got kids. It's not just a photo, it was a person that had a life.
Of course.
But your actions, albeit if you had been knocked off a bike, your actions could have kept that man alive, and you chose not to, because your need was greater than his. And that family behind that picture have waited 3 years to get an answer. Over 3 years, they're now near on 4 years to get an answer to what happened to their dad.
I understand that.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
What's your understanding of that?
No comment.
Do you genuinely have no remorse that you killed a man and buried him, leaving his family without any idea where he was for 3 years?
No comment.
I don't think at any point you have an understanding of that. I think you just see a picture there and you don't see anything behind it. So I think that's the type of person you are. Am I correct?
No comment.
One of the things from Robert's interview was the work we're going to round about the truck. I think there's almost like that belief where people don't think you're going to quite dig as much as you do dig.
Did Robert speak?
No, he didn't. He never gave us anything significant, and neither did Sandy, to be honest with you.
The only real reaction from Sandy during the interview was when the recordings were played. The recordings that we'd retrieved from Caroline Muirhead.
Police seized her laptop, which was later examined. On this laptop were several recordings, including a conversation between you and her in the morning of the 24th of February 2021. So that's going to be one of the audio clips up here. In all conversations, not once do you deny being responsible. Why not, if you're honest?
No comment.
You state it was either my life or his. What did you mean by that?
Doesn't sound like me, to be honest. It sounds like it's been arrested.
It's in hands.
He wasn't happy to accept that it was him.
Silly on me to have that conversation.
Enhancements went to a forensic lab. It's all been checked.
I don't know, I can't explain it, sorry.
To actually hear a recorded conversation, that's probably why he's reacted to that at that point, when it's actually been put in front of him and he knows it's real.
You continue, fucking stupid cunt, shouldn't have been there. Zero remorse for Mr. Parsons or his family. Have you no regrets about what you've done?
No comment.
When you've been immersed in an inquiry like that for 11 months, when you reach the stage whereby you know you're going to get it over the line and you're going to get a conclusion to your investigation, it was a sense of satisfaction.
Terminating the interview with Alexander McKellar within London Police Station. Okay.
From the 11 months between first interview and second interview, Robert and Sandy were very much out in the community, still living lives. But from this date, we're pretty confident that they've been remanded.
Okay, time is now 18:55 hours now, including the interview with Robert McKellar.
Ultimately, that's what you've spent a year working on. That's what the long nights or the time away for your family is all about, just trying to get to that point. So it's a really, really satisfying moment. It's probably one of the best parts of the job, when you're able to charge somebody with a serious crime.
Both were charged with murder and attempting to defeat the ends of justice in terms of disposing of the body afterwards in the manner in which they did. Once McKellar twins had been charged with murder, the family of Tony Parsons have to be advised. That opens a lot of questions and thoughts.
It's strange to think murder and being told that someone's being charged with murder of my dad, because we don't know how, what happened.
They're thinking, if it's murder, it must be deliberate. They must have deliberately killed him. So have they deliberately ran him off the road? Has there been a fight or disturbance beforehand?
We were asking all the questions and still getting told, no, it's an ongoing investigation. Which I totally understand, totally get. But again, it fills your head with even more scenarios.
I was asked to represent the interests of Alexander Sandy McKellar. I saw him in prison where he had been remanded at that stage. I thought it would resolve by way perhaps of a plea causing death by dangerous driving and also a very serious attempt to pervert the course of justice, because the body had been effectively hidden for a period of around about 3 years. The Crown had made a decision that they were going to indict both brothers for murder. It wasn't an obvious murder to me. The Crown case was that their actings were wickedly reckless and therefore they were guilty of murder.
On that occasion, the first accused offered to plead guilty to causing death by dangerous driving.
There was no dispute about the fact that Sandy was the driver, and so that was submitted. The Crown did not indicate they were going to accept that.
I rejected that plea. I did not think that that was adequate in the whole circumstances of the case.
Trial was actually set at the High Court in Glasgow. It's obviously the highest court in the land. It's a very significant, high-profile case. There's a lot of media interest. And that was obviously increasing as the trial was approaching, when all the intricacies of the story would have come out.
It's difficult to imagine the agony that the family went through in not knowing where Mr. Parsons was and what happened to him. That just compounded as time went on. My task is to present the evidence openly and fairly, but the jury will be told that sympathy plays no part in this, and neither does morals, because it's a court of law and not a court of morals.
When the McKellar brothers first came up into the dock and they took their seat, I watched their every move. I wanted to know whether or not they were going to look at us. They didn't. Stern kept looking straight ahead. And all I wanted to do was to say to them, why?
As a family, we've had nothing from them. When you've done that, the impact that that has had, the ripple effect of that night has impacted me, my sister, my mum, my children, you know, my dad's friends.
There was a group of us went through to the trial and we sat not far, 2 or 3 rows behind them, and we were watching them.
They came in all clean-shaven, wearing suits, trying to look respectable and everything else. But you could tell it was pure arrogance.
I knew I couldn't approach them. But I just wanted to see them react. I wanted to know what was going through their mind.
The evidence was that Mr. Parsons was alive after the collision and that the accused knew that. But it was not a straightforward case by any means, and it would be difficult to present to the jury.
Call the Diet, His Majesty's Advocate against Alexander McKellar and Robert McKellar. Please be seated. Thank you.
Advocate Depute. Thank you, my Lord. I regret that I move that the case be adjourned until tomorrow morning.
Very well, thank you.
The Crown were having difficulties in citing Caroline to appear for the trial.
Caroline was the key to this in terms of the evidence that she had gathered through the course of her relationship with Sandy and the manner in which she had been assisting the police investigation. So there was quite a bit of anxiety as to how things would go at the trial in relation to Caroline providing her evidence.
The second day is the day when the jury turns up and actually are put into the jury box and so on. Caroline had been cited to attend and she hadn't turned up.
The trial was underway and I actually got a phone call from the brother's father to say Caroline's here, she's on the estate. I was like, what do you mean she's on the estate? I knew that that was the day that she had to go to court to give evidence.
To pin your murder charge on that particular witness was a wee bit of a surprise to me, I think.
They last saw her heading up into the valley towards Loch Lyon. I let my supervisors know immediately. You'd better phone the Crown. Caroline is nowhere near Glasgow High Court.
She was effectively missing, and clearly everybody was concerned about what had happened to her, where she was.
It just so happened that one of the gamekeepers and an officer were going up the side of the loch and Caroline was found.
In these circumstances, I invite His Lordship to adjourn until tomorrow morning.
Well, in the whole circumstances, I'm inclined to grant the motion. We'll adjourn until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning and we'll assess the situation at that point.
She was clearly struggling to deal with the circumstances on that particular day.
This case has been different every single hour of every single day I've worked on it, right to the end. And during the trial, it was a pretty unique set of circumstances.
We thought the two of them were going to be charged with murder, but I think it was day 3. I just felt that something weren't right here. That, you know, I just had that feeling.
Advocate Depute.
Thank you, my Lord. I'm grateful for the extra time afforded today, and I can advise that there has been a development in the case, and I would propose to amend the indictment. Recognising that proving the murder charge was not going to be straightforward, it did seem to me that a charge of culpable homicide would be sufficient in the circumstances of this case. My Lord, in relation to charge number 1, in line 11, to delete the word murder and substitute the word kill.
Now, Mr. McConaughey.
Yes, ma'am. I have instructions to tender a plea of guilty to charge 1, which is, as your Lordship is aware, now a charge of culpable homicide.
And that was then accepted, with the result that the case did not go to a jury as a trial, but was a guilty plea. Okay, my Lord, those pleas are acceptable to the Crown.
The difference between a conviction for murder and a conviction for culpable homicide is huge. And also the fact that Sandy's brother would no longer be on the homicide charge. They were two very important factors. It probably wasn't a particularly difficult decision for Sandy to make, even although he knew the outcome would be he would get a significant custodial sentence.
A change of plea by the accused is not an unusual thing. We do strive to try and avoid that happening at the trial. It's unfortunate that it happens at that late stage, but it does happen.
Well, I can see why it happened, because if you went for murder and you couldn't prove it, then there's a chance of getting off. Don't make it right.
When we found out that the McKellars had made a plea, that didn't sit well with me. My initial thought was, they're going to go down and they're taking the truth with them. So by pleading, not only have they robbed me of my father, but they've robbed me of knowing the truth.
My Lord, I move for sentence. His Lordship will see that the previous convictions for Alexander McKellar are dangerous driving, driving with an excess of alcohol, and in 2012 he was convicted of careless driving. My Lord, I would propose that the Crown and Defence prepare an agreed narrative, because the case is fairly complex and there's quite a bit to say. There would be insufficient time to conclude that today.
Thank you very much.
When they get out of jail, they're going to go back to life as if nothing's happened. They're going to get on with it. They're going to enjoy themselves. I can't do that. I can't do that because Tony's not here. They're not the one that are left with a life sentence. I am. Because that's what they've done.
My Lord, this case commenced as a missing person inquiry before evolving into an investigation. Around July 2017, Anthony Parsons decided to engage in a cycle from Fort William to his home address in Tillicoultry. His wife, Margaret Parsons, received text messages from his mobile asking how she was and confirming that he had arrived in Fort William. This was the last contact she had with her husband. Around 2300 hours, Mr. Parsons attended at the Bridge of Orchy Hotel. He was wet due to the adverse weather. It was suggested to him that he should stay the night in the hotel. However, after having a coffee, he left the hotel to continue his cycle and travelled south on his intended route.
You could see them shaking their heads with what was being said. I know, man, it was really, really difficult to watch that.
My Lord, so far as the accused are concerned, the accused, Alexander McKellar, after consuming alcohol, drove with Robert McKellar as a passenger on a journey from the Bridge of Orchy Hotel to their home on the Och Estate a few miles away. During the journey, in adverse weather conditions, at night and at speed, the vehicle collided with Anthony Parsons, who was, at the time, riding his bicycle. After seriously injuring Anthony Parsons, Alexander McKellar ascertained that Mr. Parsons was still alive. He did not call the emergency services, thereby preventing any prospect of Mr. Parsons receiving medical treatment.
He will have been in massive amounts of pain. So then to not seek any form of medical treatment from that is just 100% inhumane.
It was horrible to hear what they'd done. And I'm not talking about the fact they knocked him off his bike with the car. It's what they did after.
Without immediate medical assistance, he would have been unlikely to survive longer than 20 to 30 minutes. Police inquiry confirmed that the quickest emergency medical response would have taken approximately 1 hour if any assistance had been sought.
The outcome of what would have happened, how long it would have taken an ambulance to get there, is irrelevant. If you know that you've hit somebody, you can see that they are still alive. Any basic human instinct says you need to try and get help.
They just wanted to protect themselves. They could have phoned for somebody. They could have phoned an ambulance. They could have phoned the police. They could have even done it anonymously. But they didn't.
The two accused left the scene in the vehicle and returned in a different vehicle, collected Mr. Parsons' body and bicycle and transported him to the Och Estate, whereby they left him overnight. After attending with a shooting party the next day, the body was taken to a peaty area on the estate. A grave was dug and the body placed in it and covered.
I do remember the full story being read out in court line by line, and it really was, it was a real shock.
What they did was callous. That's not actions of a drunken man, not the day after. This is the actions of somebody who's trying to cover up a crime.
To willingly go down a course of action whereby you are letting somebody die, that to me is murder. And our opinion will always be the same. They have murdered my dad and they have taken him away from us.
Such was the location that if Alexander McKellar had not disclosed where the grave was, the remains are unlikely to have ever been found. And, my lord, there is a drive-through on the estate. I'm not going to play all of it, but I will demonstrate the deposition area so His Lordship will get an idea of how remote this area is.
They took Tony, they buried him, they left me for 3.5 years, and my kids and grandkids, not knowing where Tony was.
And this is the deposition site just to the right of the roadway. The peat bog area is utilised by estate employees, including the accused Robert and Alexander McKellar, to routinely dispose of animal carcasses. This was evident on initial observation by police officers due to openly visible animal bones. Between the 13th and 14th of January 2021, the body of Mr. Parsons was exposed and, with great care, recovered from within the grave.
How on earth can anybody with any iota of goodness in them, how can they do that? How on earth could they live with it knowing that poor Tony was buried sort of probably not very far from the front door?
Anthony Parsons was 63 at the time of his death. He was a much-loved husband, father, brother, grandfather and friend. He had very close community ties. My lord, those are the submissions for the Crown.
Robert McKellar and Alexander McKellar, please stand. You will next appear before me for the matter of sentence. You'll continue to be detained. That's all.
There's been no remorse. Absolutely nothing from them at all. To be honest, I hate the both of them. I really do. I'm still angry. It won't go away.
Call the Diet adjourned Diet for sentence. His Majesty's advocate against Alexander McKellar and Robert Kellar. Please be seated. Thank you.
Mr. McConaughey.
On Lord. Mr. McKellar is well aware of the family's views and knows and understands that there is no apology which he can tender which will ever be acceptable to them. But nonetheless, he wishes me on his behalf to indicate that he deeply regrets the trauma that he put the family through. On the night of the 29th of September 2017, it is fully accepted by him he ought not to have been driving. By his plea, he accepts that whilst catastrophically injured, Mr. Parsons was alive at the time. Mr. McKellar accepts he did not call for assistance. The only explanation which he offers, and the only explanation which perhaps makes sense, is simply fear and panic. Fear for himself and panic for the situation he found himself in. His conduct thereafter became something of a runaway train. Using his words, he says he was too much of a coward to come clean. He sought solace in alcohol and much more significant abuse of cocaine. Mr. McKellar found what he had done more and more difficult to live with. And on two separate occasions, he came close to ending his own life. On one occasion, he drove to a remote part of the estate and had a loaded rifle in his mouth. but didn't pull the trigger. In 2020, when he met Caroline and she went to the police, he fully accepts that ultimately she made the right decision in doing so. The finding of Mr. Parsons' body and the fact that these proceedings are now coming to an end, to some extent, has meant that there is a very significant weight being lifted from him. He would do anything he could to have the chance to alter the decision he took on the 29th of September, but he can't rewind the clock.
If you have done something and you're not a psychopath, which I've got no reason to believe that they're psychopaths, then it is always going to play in your mind. And I think the older you get, the more you realise that you have to face up to the terrible things that you may or may not have done in life. There must have been a sense of relief that, right, okay, this is happening. They were going to have to face the consequences of what happened that night.
I never seen any remorse from Sandy. If other people have got a sense that he was remorseful, then fair enough, but it's not anything I ever witnessed. During police interactions with Robert, I didn't really get any real sense of remorse from him either.
Robert McKellar became involved out of a misplaced sense of loyalty to his brother. He made a very significant error of judgment to support his brother at a point in his life where he already feared that his family was breaking up. However, that decision having been made, he accepts that he then participated fully in what was clearly a sustained and determined effort to conceal the truth of his brother's crime, and in so doing he undoubtedly caused Mr. Parsons' family and friends immeasurable pain and suffering.
It really just seemed that they didn't treat Tony Parsons any differently to how they dealt with the carcasses of the animals they killed when they were in their hunting parties.
In my submission, it is fair to say that Robert McKellar bitterly regrets his callous and cowardly actions. He would like the opportunity to communicate directly with Mr. Parsons' family in order to apologise for his actions, but he too is aware of and respects the views of Mr. Parsons' family.
These two individuals have sat in a courtroom listening to all this evidence, and are you only sorry because you've been caught? I don't know. I really don't know.
Mr. McKellar appreciates the awfulness of prison. He is witness to it every day and is kept awake most nights by prisoners in distress, screaming and banging on the walls. But he understands and accepts why he is in prison.
That's not comfort for the family of the victim or his friends or us either. It's not comfort for any of us.
Very well. Alexander McKellar and Robert McKellar, please stand. You have pleaded guilty to grave and serious crimes. I have no doubt that Mr. Parsons' family have been deeply affected by this. I have read and noted the terms of 3 victim impact statements made by members of his family. Their terms clearly indicate the profound, devastating and continuing impact, the lasting effect of which may be incalculable. Nothing I can say or do can compensate for their loss, and I suspect that no sentence would ever be regarded as sufficient in their eyes. Alexander McKellar, I will impose on you a single sentence of imprisonment of 12 years. Robert McKellar, the sentence which I now impose on you is one of a period of imprisonment of 5 years and 3 months. That is all.
I guess on reflection for me, that is a fair result. They've still been convicted of serious and significant crimes. We've provided answers to the family of Tony and we've managed to bring justice.
A drink driver who hit and killed a cyclist has been sentenced to 12 years in prison.
So have we achieved our objective in relation to this investigation? Absolutely.
This is an extraordinary, heartbreaking tale.
Twin brothers Alexander and Robert McKellar sobbed as they were sentenced at Glasgow High Court this morning.
For me, it had to be murder. I absolutely felt that the whole story should have been told in court in front of the jury, because if they heard the whole thing, then there's no way those guys would have got away with it, which I believe they did. With the sentences they got, they definitely got away with it.
Pain and grief seemed to show on the faces of Tony Parsons' family as they left court.
You never thought for one moment that it would be 6 years until we got justice. Nobody can try and fathom out how long that 6 years was. How hard, how traumatising it is.
I don't have any hatred towards these individuals because of my work experience. I've seen these things happen in other scenarios, and I'm fully aware they have family as well that will be going through stresses and things like that. I just wish it never happened.
I love Tony because he was kind. He made me happy. He's looked after me all these years. And I'm lost without Tone. I am making new memories with my grandkids, my son and my daughter. But it still hurts that Tony's not here to see it.
It's getting to the stage where I can see things finally coming to a close. I can see us finally starting to move on. Can't wait for the day where we do actually get together as a family and go, we've done him proud. We brought him home. And that's where he should be.